So, I'm here to do my thoughts and discussion, I guess review, of Star Trek Picard Episode 4. Now, this one is titled Absolute Candor, which is obviously, it's a play on with respect to what we see in the episode itself, which is a new element to Romulan culture, which was that these Kuat Milat, which are... they're basically ninja-like Romulan nuns, okay? And you think I'm joking, but no, I'm deadly serious. The Kuat Milat are sisters, and they wear, I guess, it's almost a cross between, like nun garb and like a hijab. It's stuff like that. So they're kind of woving stuff into it with respect to some elements from our world. That's the closest thing I would say. And these people, these Romulans, these ninja nuns, they basically have absolute candor. They will say unabashedly what their emotions are at any given time. They don't care. Complete transparency. Absolute candor, I guess you might say. Now, the hardest thing about doing this show, guys, is that it's just boring. And this episode was exactly the same. We are 4 episodes into what I believe is an 8-episode season. I'm fairly certain, because I think they announced that it was going to be 10 and then they knocked 2 off. But I could be wrong. And if not, well, we're still basically halfway through. 4 or 5, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But it's been 4 episodes of complete and utter setup. Now, this episode is entirely no different, in fact. And like I say, it is just boring. But there's also some really weird decisions on just story elements. It's almost as if they just had utterly no idea what they were doing, and they really cut it so close to the wire. But let's get into it, right? This is the episode which is directed by Frakes, or number 1. So Will Riker, Jonathan Frakes. And even he can't save it. Now, obviously, he's directed quite a lot of Star Trek, and people have liked what he's done with Star Trek and the Orville and things like that. Okay, so we're on this new planet. And let's just basically call it what it is. Okay, this is an elven planet, and we'll get into that in a second as to even why it's definitely a bloody elven planet. They're turning Romulans into elves. This is Lord of the Rings, but boring. It's boring rings, bored of the rings. That's it. It's bored of the rings. For God's sake, it's bored of the rings. So anyway, we open on this planet, this new colony. Everyone is happy. Everyone's running about. There's a rapscallion little chapo running about stealing fruit. And it's like 14 years before the current day events that we have been seeing in the universe, right? Which we'll get to that in a second as well, because this 14 years thing, good God, there's some strange aging happening in this show. So Picard beams down and he's talking to the Kuat Milat, the ninja women, the ninja nuns, the nunjas. He's speaking to the nunjas. Anyway, and so they're talking to them, and they're just saying, we need to protect you, we need to do this. And there's this little boy who they had taken in, who was obviously an orphan. Now, his name, okay, bearing in mind, they are literally painting Romulans to be elves. His name is Elnor. Now, you might think to yourself, Elnor. I've heard something like that before somewhere, And you'd be right, ladies and gentlemen, because who is dressed identically with identical hair in another universe? Not in Lord of the Rings, no, in Lord of the Rings, it's Elrond. It's Elrond. They've just ripped off Elrond. Yes, ladies and gents, yes, they have. So Elnor is this little Romulan laddo that's been orphaned. And anyway, Picard's going off doing his thing, and there's a little bit of setup on how he says he's gonna take him away, and all this kind of stuff. Bearing in mind, when we first see Elrond Light, he's a real young lad. He's a real young laddo. Now, he then gets notified by Raffi, JL gets notified by Raffi that there has been the assault on Mars. Okay, the sort of genocide, the attack on Mars. And he buggers off. Okay, and that's basically, that's our setup for the show. And then obviously, we're now thrust back onto the ship, and they're making a pit stop on their way to Free Cloud. Where are they going? Well, they're going to Elves in Space. Space Elves. Spelves. So they're going to go see some Spelves, and it's the Romulan city again. Elves in Space. And again, bearing in mind, they've already told us that it's 14 years past. These are Romulans. Okay, they don't really age like humans, which is identified within the show, because the first person that Picard actually gets an answer from anyone is the same ninja nun who we had seen him interacting with in the flashback, right? And he says, and I quote, "You haven't aged," right? You haven't aged. You've not gotten old. Okay, which is obviously that's right. That's fine. She wouldn't have, because they are Romulans. But guess who has aged, ladies and gentlemen? Elrond Light from Lord of the Rings. He's aged. He is now. He's gone from, I would imagine, that kid looked 8, I guess, to mid-20s. It looks like he's mid-20s. How did that happen? 14 years. Romulans don't age that fast. So they got, on one hand, they do it in the show. They tell us, yeah, no, they don't age. That's fine. But hey, Lord of the Rings dropout over here, Elnor, he ages super quick. Okay, whatever. Who cares? So anyway, there's obviously this big discussion between, Picard and Lord of the Rings, Elnor, whether they're going to take him or not, whether he's going to, put himself down to his cause and lay his sword down. And he acts like a petulant child, which is fine, because apparently they age different. But obviously, he still shouldn't be acting like a petulant child, because he's clearly aged a lot quicker than other Romulans, because he's like mid-20s. Oh, God, this show. So anyway, we then obviously cut over to our events on the Borg ship. And there's some really weird elements going on here. Okay, so we didn't spend too much time with Soji and Emo Romulan in this episode. But what we did see was very strange. So they're interacting, that's fine. And then he takes her down to some underground thing to try and obviously soften her up, because he, wants to, getting her puss again. But he also is obviously trying to get information out of her. So he takes his shoes off and he says, this is a Borg ritual. Takes his shoes off and he basically just goes sliding along the floor, which is like, that's fine. That's quite a sweet moment. But it's accented by the fact that Soji, the actress playing her, can't run. Like, I'll leave it on the screen now. She can't run. She looks awful running. Like, and I get it. Like, some people just look dumb running. That's why they don't really do it too much in movies. Or they're very selective about who runs in films and how they show it. But she looks terrible running. So that was weird. And then, ladies and gents, there's some more mystery about the Romulans who were assimilated by the Borg and what they were doing and who they are and all this kind of stuff. And it's basically setting up. Now, I don't know this, but it's definitely going to happen, right? Soji, Romulans definitely created the Borg. Okay, I'll just put it down there now. I reckon they created the Borg, because they're talking about the Romulans with the tarot cards in the previous episode and how it's the news. Now, obviously, I reckon they just created the Borg. That's how they're going to do it. They're going to say, yeah, Romulans created the Borg. That's why they want to kill him. That's why they have limited technology. And that's why they want to kill Soji. Because there's quotes within this episode from the woman that, the Romulan ex-Borgo. And she's saying how the Destroyer will unchain all the demons, unshackle the demons, right? Unshackle demons. That's Borg. Unshackled, isn't it? I mean, that's just bloody obvious. For God's sake, God, it's terrible. And then Emo Romulan and his sister. nearly cop it off again. There's some very strange sexual tension between emo Romulan and his sister. Like, really, there's some really strange sexual tension going on there. She's leather clad, you know, she's looking fine, she's looking banging. But a little bit weird of an interaction with your sister. Shouldn't be doing stuff like that. It's a bit odd. You know, she's like grabbing his throat and getting up close to him and stuff like this, and getting up close to his neck and whispering in his ear. And again, like, I'll leave it on the screen now. Hopefully I can find some clips of it. This is not... I appreciate it from a different culture, but good God. Whoever wrote this, you better go check how they act with their sister, because this is odd. And we know that they're brother and sister. This is not how you interact with your siblings. Again, whoever wrote this probably, I'm just going to say it now, probably done some incest, I would say. Very strange. You don't act like this with your sister. No, bad times. But the actress here is actually quite good. I like this actress. Out of all the other actors in this show, she's reasonably good. And then, basically, we don't really do too much else there. Again, it sounds like nothing's happened. And it sounds like I'm just talking nonsense and drawing this video out. But I'm actually not, guys. This is how boring this episode was. And that's the most offensive part of this series, right? You know, there's a lot of political elements in this show. There's a lot of allegories to Brexit and Trump and immigration. But that's not the most offensive stuff. The most offensive stuff is just the fact that it's boring. It's just plain dull. That's why it's taken me so long to bloody review it. Because the thing is, like, I review Batwoman weekly when it's shown, and that's fun because it's just dumb, and you know, all nonsense happens weekly. This is just boring. It's 4 episodes of complete boredom. It's Board of the Rings. It really is. You know, they're building their fellowship of the Board of the Rings. It's just terrible. So anyway, Picard gets Elrond Light from Board of the Rings to sign up to his quest. It literally is signing up to a quest. Fucking God, space elves. Spells. Pathetic. And he murders someone in cold blood, which you just think to yourself, right, okay, whatever. That's what we're doing now in this show. Cool. And then they get attacked, and then who saves the day? It's 7 of 9, and then the episode closes. So that's literally all that happens. He gets a spelve. We see some ninja nuns, some nunjas, and we almost see some incest, and that's basically it. The show's just offensively boring. It's terrible. I need to check the episodes, because if it's 8 episodes, we're halfway in. Fuck all's happened. And if it's not, well, I don't think anything's going to happen in the next episode, and that'll be halfway in, and fuck all's happened. It's terrible. It's real bad. And stop trying to make JL a thing. No one wants JL. Fuck off.